Hello, how are you? Hope you're doing well. Um, I wanted to come on and talk a little bit about the energy of overgiving, okay? And how that kind of plays out. Sometimes people overgive because at some point in their life they were conditioned to, well, not even necessarily in an overt way or like in a deliberate way, but sometimes people are conditioned at a young age that the only time I get attention or is when I'm doing for others. Other times it is over. It is like actual people telling us that you should live a selfless life and always give of yourself to other people because maybe that's what God wants, or insert whomever. people people say a lot of things to get their way. Okay. Oftentimes though, it's not because someone's actually trying, knowing the consequences to manipulate you. However, that is ultimately what it is. When people try to control your life or get out of you to make their life easier without reciprocity, okay? So maybe it is through obligation, or they know you're an overgiver, so you're the person to ask, right? That's not helping them with their growth, and it certainly isn't helping you with yours. So again, how we get to that point is different from person to person. A common theme is some kind of an abandonment wound that makes you feel like you have to earn love, however that may be. Or maybe you had an inordinate amount of responsibility at a young age and you're just used to giving. And therefore, it's not even because it was a belief system, but it became a behavioral pattern, right? So either way, overgiving is depleting you, okay? Again, I'm not talking about doing for somebody. Like if you're walking through a doorway anyway, holding the door for the person behind you is just being a kind and respectful person. You're going out of your way to do it. And sometimes we do. Like if I'm sitting in a standing only area and someone who is of greater need than me, like maybe there's a woman who's pregnant or someone who has a cane or something, or is clearly in pain of some sort, I may relinquish my seat in order to allow them to sit down. Okay? Sometimes we do that, and sometimes it is the right thing to do. I'm talking about the overgiving, okay? And usually it's out of some level of expectation from someone else. And sometimes it's them just projecting their problems onto you, hoping that you'll handle it for them, okay? We have to be careful with that, because sometimes the problem that they're dealing with is balancing them out and is a deeper soul lesson for them. And if we take that on, how are they learning their lesson? Or how are they learning, period? Like if you think of like little kids, if we wrap them in bubble wrap and don't allow them to fall or play or do things that where they could potentially, obviously if someone's learning to walk, a toddler's learning to walk, they probably still have diaper bum, right? So they have padding, not pattern. They have padding there. But that's how we learn as human beings. I just had this conversation with my son the other day. It's like, I saw this great meme, and it said something like, the difference between an apprentice and a master is the master has failed more times than the apprentice has tried. Okay? Failure in and of itself is not a bad thing, because it's not an all or nothing thing. That's where we want to challenge the mindset. If I fail at something, I don't have to take that as an absolute no, never again. I'm gonna quit it. I'm gonna, whatever. Unless I'm getting a different message from it, right? If I'm doing something that maybe I shouldn't be doing in the first place, but I'm doing it for things that I'm trying to heal, then it may fail, okay, but to teach me a greater lesson. Either way, it's not failure as long as we learn the lesson, right? Or if it's a task or a goal that I set for myself and I struggle with it, because everything's hard until it's not hard anymore, because we have to continue doing to learn, to change, to grow, okay? Very rarely is it a one and done, or is it a I mastered it the first time around, okay? Most of us, it takes a little bit of repetition before it becomes easy. When I first got my driver's license, I was terrified. I even waited until I was 18 because I was so afraid to drive. I was terrified. My father would joke with me. He'd say he'd have to force me to drive myself to work with him in the passenger seat. And then he would be like, I'd have to peel your hands off the steering wheel. I was really scared. Now I think of that sometimes when I'm driving my car, and it's like, now it's like second nature, but I've been doing it for so many years, you know? So in any case, there are people that make it easy for us to see that they're trying to take advantage, okay? But depending on how deep that wound is and how much attention we've given it, we may still fall into those, I don't want to say tricks, but traps, if you will. Especially when it's people we love. It's very hard to say no to someone you love that's in need, okay? However, I always start with, did I create this problem? And if the answer is no, then it's not my problem to solve, first of all. Now, sometimes if I'm in a place of ability, I will then sit with it a little bit deeper and be like, okay, how does this feel? Is this something that I should give my energy to, or could give my energy to, that is not going to enable somebody else? So if they have a patternistic behavior, okay, with creating problems for themselves and then asking other people to solve it, then me helping is not going to help them, because they're not going to break that pattern until they deal with whatever natural consequence they have to deal with. You know? And I do hold my kids to the same. I do. I'm not a hypocrite when it comes to that. But it is hard. When you love somebody, it's not easy to say no. It's not easy. But when we take a step back and look at the bigger picture, am I really helping, or am I inhibiting? Are they learning anything from this? And do they even appreciate it, or have they just come to expect? Every situation is going to be different. And sometimes it's not someone you love, sometimes it's work or whatever. But always ask yourself, to what end? Why do I feel like I should do something? Okay? Is it programming? Is it because this is what I was always told, right? You know, the whole families or blood is thicker than water, which we know now, or if you don't, here's a little tidbit. That's a bastardized quote that actually comes from the blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb, which actually means the opposite of what people have said. It means that actually the bonds that you create out of choice, hopefully discernment, okay, that we're making wise choices with regards to the people we surround ourselves with, right? Those bonds are more important than the family you're born into. Most families are, for better, and this is a generalistic term, right? But they're fairly karmic, because there's a lot of lessons that come from our upbringings, isn't there? From our family. Usually family is more triggering than anyone. Those family get-togethers, we love them. Usually a butt there. And again, I'm generalizing, right? Some people come from wonderful, nurturing families or have those family members that they absolutely love, okay? So I'm not knocking that. I'm just saying that a lot of our harshest lessons come from family. They do. And like I've always said, karma's neither good or bad. It's just a balancing of energy. It is. So if you find that you've hit hard times, is one of two things. Either that's karma, learn your lessons of what you didn't do to help yourself, or it is just lessons to teach you how to use your strength, boundaries, and grow into who you're here to be. I don't know, to each his own. But none of it is meant to punish. Let's put it that way. But oftentimes we punish ourselves, right? And this is why I talk a lot about mindset and what are your thoughts around things, because that frames your perception. If I'm afraid of butterflies and I see a bunch of butterflies, I might feel under attack. That might set off my nervous system, right? However, if I see butterflies as a message from spirit, from God or whatever, my angels, and I see a bunch of butterflies, I might see that as a miracle. Who's in the better mind frame, right? And in this case, there's no one fact over another. It's not about truth. It's about your truth with regards to a situation like that, which is most of our life, by the way. If I see nothing but negative in the world, I might be afraid to leave my house. However, if I see beauty in the world and love making connections because I've made some positive ones, I'm not going to have that level of fear. Okay? Those are things we can control. And people will say, well, no, because this is obvious, the facts. No, it's obviously your facts. Because that's the information you feed your brain. You're not looking at the good things that are happening too. And I always say this, no matter how many bad things that you perceive or are happening in your life, there's just as many good things happening right alongside of it. It's what you decide to notice. What are you focused on? And that's what that means. But anyway, back to the overgiving. If you find that some people expect more than what you can give, that if you deplete yourself, whether that's your coffers, your money, whether that's just, I don't have another minute to give in this day, but this is my mother and she needs a ride. Well, I'm quite certain, unless she's burned bridges, she has other people she can call. So no is a full sentence for a reason. And it's a hard one for people to utilize, but it's very necessary in life, especially with people that repeat patterns of, I don't want to go as deep as abuse, but it is an abuse of relationship, right? It's an abuse of power, especially if you know someone's struggling with that. So if you've confided in someone that this is an issue for you and you're trying to work on it, yet they then use that against you, that's not a friend. That's not even someone who respects you. That's someone who's using you. Be discerning and make sure that your programming isn't overriding your discernment, your wisdom. Your soul knows. Trust yourself. If it feels wrong, chances are it's wrong for you. Just make sure that that's not out of fear. Okay, but with regards to this particular subject, trust yourself. If it feels cringe, it probably is cringe. That doesn't mean you're always going to get it right, but as long as you start bringing awareness to it, that's the first step. All right, I'm going to leave that there because, as you know, I'm wordy. I could go on forever. So, probably something that will come up again in the future, but this really speaks to boundaries and awareness. Okay, so be mindful, be aware. How am I feeling around these people? How am I feeling around this? Am I throwing myself under the bus because I don't have enough self-worth? Okay, Because maybe I've been conditioned to believe my worth is only in what I can give. That's not love. That's use. Okay? But we can't expect others to love us if we don't love ourselves enough to know that. And not feed that machine, if you will. And that's what it means by love yourself, and that will make a difference. It's not like an overnight switch, but when you start realizing your worth and how valuable you are and your energy is, you do start to make other choices with regards to who has access to that. And not out of hate or anger or closing down your heart. In fact, you'll never see. You won't even see the patterns if you have a closed heart, because how else are you going to feel? So oftentimes we self-sabotage ourselves. Be mindful of that. Because if you find yourself in a place in your life that you're like, what did I do wrong? You didn't do anything wrong. This isn't about shaming. It's about recognizing. Be aware of the choices you made and where they brought you. And if that doesn't feel good, make other choices. As long as there's air in your lungs, there's room for change. There's room for growth. But it starts with you. All right. If you stayed this long, thank you. Please give it a like, maybe a share if you think someone could benefit from that. If you're not subscribed to me and watching through other means, then please subscribe, because all that does is give more people an opportunity to gain access to the information. Okay? And that's what I'm doing this for. If it helps one person, then it's worth it. Okay? So wishing you the best, and I'll talk again soon. Bye.